Still there?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. Just want to welcome you to another episode of Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about how to generate a consistent stream of leads using ISAs and outbound prospecting. Got an awesome guest for you. And Jason, why don't you explain a little bit about what we're going to talk about and introduce the guest to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that warm introduction. So good morning, everyone. Super excited to, first off, to be on with all of you guys, but also to have our special guest, Tim Heyl from Austin, Texas. Just an awesome guy, but he also does things real big down in Texas with his business and his real estate team. And, we've got some questions. Tim's going to bring us through his business and what he does to be successful. And, it's going to be a great time as always.
Yeah, and Tim, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about your business a little bit, and before we do that, I just want to tell all of the viewers that we have a Q&A app open. If you have any questions, go ahead and submit those there. I'll be watching that, and I'll get those questions over to Tim and Jason so that they can answer them right here on the show.
Great. So my name's Tim Heyl. I'm with Keller Williams in Austin, Texas. I apologize that my camera setting isn't working right now, so we're gonna have to just listen. Technology is not my thing. However, I'm excited to be on this interview, on this webinar, and I got in the business about 5.5 years ago, and I was just graduating from college. I was a finance major at Texas A&M here in Texas, just a couple hours away from Austin, my hometown. And when I moved back from college, I met up with Keller Williams, met up with one of the market centers here, and got going right away. I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and it got me super excited to get into building a business inside of real estate. And so that's what I set out to do.
Awesome. And Tim, last year for 2014, what did your production look like?
We did about we did just over 2 million in GCI. It was about 265 sales, I believe.
265. Holy cow! That's a whole lot of homes.
A lot of homes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've been in the business since about 5.5 years. So that's about 1999 or so. And you've grown the business to be one of the premier real estate groups in all of the Austin area. Besides the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Book, and obviously that's foundation and so much more. What else has attributed to your success? What else do you feel the intangibles?
Yeah. Coaching for sure, having the right people around me. So when I got into real estate in late 2009, early 2010, I didn't really have much of an idea of what I was doing or where I was going. I built out a 17-year roadmap. I thought it was going to take 17 years to get to roughly where I'm at now. And I really didn't have any idea what it was going to take or how long or how quickly it could get done. But I had a lot of really good people around me. I was fortunate to be able to jump into one of the first Bolds when Bold first came out, and got to meet people like Diana Kokoska and Tony DeCello, and just my team leaders here at the Market Center. The top producer at the Market Center definitely saw my work ethic and took me under his wing and started teaching me everything that he was doing. And then, just kind of progressing from there, going and meeting other agents at family reunions, Keller Williams, getting to listen to Gary Keller constantly and reading and listening to his interviews and reading his books. That's all been, I would say, the number one influence for my success have just been the people that have surrounded me within KW, for sure.
So the great people around in Keller Williams and the coaching and all the connections you've made. All right, so great. And actually, our market center here up in Covina, California, it's a brand new market center, and yesterday was actually our first Bold graduation. We're about 20 of our agents just graduated yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. That should help the profitability of the market center in due time.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of them are on this webinar, so it's this Google Hangout. So it's really exciting. I mean, the energy around here is just it's electrifying and it's off the charts. So you mentioned Bold as being your kickoff. That was mine too as well. I'll never forget my first Bold experience. And
who was your coach?
My first coach was Jason Bosch.
Awesome.
Yeah, super awesome dude. And you know what? We still talk to this day, once or 2-3 times a month.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Bold is one of those things where the first time you go through it, it's a wake up call. You know, I remember my first Bold that when they give you the hour to go make phone calls, the hour break to go make your phone calls. I remember I went out. I think the first time I grabbed it was a race to grab the first conference room, you know, so you could shut the door and lock yourself in and actually have some privacy.
Right.
and then a few times after that, I didn't get there in time, so I ran out to my car, you know. But I was so embarrassed to make phone calls in front of anybody, and you know, in the full hour, I would maybe make 2 calls or 3 calls, and I would look around and just see it just seemed like everybody else was just pounding the phones, you know, and I couldn't believe how that was happening, how everybody had the confidence to just jump on the phones and make calls like that. So I definitely went a long way from my first Bold class to even my last Bold class the first time I went through it. You know, I've been through Bold 8 or 9 times now, but the first Bold, you know, I went from having no business to I think 13 listings when I graduated from Bold, and I still didn't have any money in my pocket, but I had 13 listings, and that was enough confidence for me to hire a coach. And so as soon as I got out of Bold, I hired a coach, and you know, it was just kind of like I kept doing the right things at the right times. You know, jumping into Bold right away, hiring a coach right after I got out of Bold. It was just one thing after another that I kind of lucked into, taking the plunge, taking the risk, and it just kept pushing me to the next level.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny, Tim. You mentioned that first time making those phone calls, dude. I was right there with you. The same thing. Going, oh my God, I hope no one hears me. I hope no one sees me making these calls.
Right.
I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Even having the scripts there, I just like you, I didn't have the practice, you know.
Yeah.
And by the way, for the folks that don't know what BOLD is, it stands for Business Objective, a Life by Design. So we have a lot of people on this hangout that aren't necessarily with Keller Williams. So
gotcha.
Just want to let them know.
Well, that's a course, Jason. Would you let non-Keller Williams agents go and join that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'd highly recommend it. It's one of the best things. It's like a boot camp. You know, it's like a boot camp that just gets you doing the right things. It reminded me of lifting weights in high school football. You know, just kind of getting that muscle memory, getting used to doing the activities of what it takes to be successful in this business. So I would definitely suggest people jumping into that for sure.
Absolutely. You know, I wasn't really prepared for this, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I can't think of a single class or training or coaching event that we have that outside people cannot come to.
Okay. Awesome.
At least off the top of my head, I can't think of anything right now. So, you know, that's one of the major differences from us and everybody else out there is we're completely open. You can come to pretty much anything.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Speaking of the muscle memory in the coaching, you keep a very strict schedule for your lead generation. Can you tell us a little bit? You know, just kind of give us a little idea of what your morning looks like and what your schedule. You know, you come in, you get your cup of coffee, and then you go to your calling desk. What do you do?
It's funny, you know. So it's definitely evolved. It's definitely evolved as my role has changed. So when I was an individual agent, I would come in. You know, I was very fortunate that I was fortunate for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't have a lot of liability in my life. You know, I was broke, so I was living at home with my parents after college, and my girlfriend lived, you know, 3 hours away. She was getting her master's degree, and so, you know, I didn't have that. You know, I basically was able to just get in the office at 6 a.m. every day and get after it. So that's what I did. I got here, and I would spend from 6 until about 7:15 compiling my lists. So what I was doing was I didn't have the money to pay for Vulcan 7 or Arch Telecom or Red X or any of those systems. So I was basically downloading all the data from the multiple listing service, all of the active listings, and then I'm matching them to all of the expired listings for that day, so I can pull a list of the phone numbers for all the people that I want to call. And then I would go scour the internet looking on forsalebyowner.com and Zillow, Make Me Move, and Craigslist, pulling all the for sale by owner data together. So I'd have my updated lists ready to go by around 7:15. And then from that time until 8 o'clock, I was either role playing or practicing my scripts. Basically, I'm just getting hyped up, getting ready to go. And by 8 o'clock, I was always on the phone. So I'd make calls from 8 to 11. And so with that, when I first didn't have any business, I really pretty much made calls all day, but it was very inefficient. It took me literally 8 hours to get my 20 contacts, just because I didn't have my systems together. I didn't have my confidence in line.
Right.
It really took all day, but it didn't matter because I didn't have any clients or anything else to do anyway. And most of the new agents in the market center were spending their time putting their logos and business cards together, and they were developing their brand and their website and all these things that are important at some point in time, but they definitely aren't important right when you jump into a business that's not paying you anything. So I kind of forewent a lot of those things and just made calls all day. And then once I got my processes down, then it was 8 to 11. 8 to 11, I'd make somewhere between 20 and 30 contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And from 11 to 12, I would do my follow-up. So what that looked like was every time I would get a lead, I called them a nurture, I would write them a personal note, put it in the mail, slap a business card in there, and then I'd set a follow-up call in my CRM. I was using Top Producer at the time, which is a lot like eEdge.
Right.
So I'd set a follow-up call. So from 11 to 12 every day, I would look at whatever follow-up calls I had for the day, and I would make those calls. And what would let me sleep at night, because I was generating a lot of leads. I mean, it wasn't a lot per day. It was only about 5 a day. But if you think about 5 a day, that's 100 a month. That's over 1,000 a year. And then you think about a couple of years of that, you got a lot of people in the system, a lot of qualified seller leads. And so the thing that was allowing me to go to sleep at night was that everybody was in the system, everybody had a follow-up call set, and I was committed to every day at 11 o'clock addressing those. And so I was never letting them stack up or anything. I was staying on that. And then from 12 till the rest of the day was chaos, right? It was just being a real estate agent.
Right.
And then what happened was, as I started to evolve, and today I don't work with buyers or sellers anymore. I haven't for about a year and a half. I've leveraged that out to the rest of the business, and yet I still come in, and from 8 to 11 is still lead generation time. So for me, it looks a little bit different. I'm recruiting. I'm generating leads for our team, just so that we've always got the right people in place. So yesterday I had 8 interviews. The day before I had 4. Today I've got 3. To be able to schedule consistent interviews like that, you've got to be consistently generating talent leads. So I'm spending about 3 hours every morning recruiting before the day gets crazy. So it's still the same thing. And all of the agents that came on the team, the best part about it, and I didn't realize this would be in effect, but all of my agents come in. They're all here at 8 o'clock. The latest ones stroll in by 8:30. And they're all on the phones until 11. Now, they're not cold calling. They're calling qualified lead lists that my ISAs have generated for them. Nevertheless, they're in here prospecting until 11 o'clock. And the cool part about it is, if one guy isn't, he's the odd man out, and he looks really weird. And we've been able to create that environment where that's just what we do, and it's how we act.
Right. No, absolutely. So, all right. So your role's changed a little bit, and you've leveraged out the daily calls. But you're still pounding the phones, adding to your bench, and looking for top talent. So
right.
It's the same thing. You're still prospecting. It's just for a different type of prospect.
Yeah. What I realized was the thing that continued to push me to new levels in my business was that I never took my foot off the gas.
Right.
I found out pretty quickly that the result of what I needed in my lead generation time, Jason, was that I needed to get 5 qualified seller leads, and I called those nurtures. I needed to get 5 qualified nurtures, and so I could do that if I made somewhere between 20 and 30 contacts would get me there. It was typically for every 5 conversations I would have, I'd get a qualified seller lead. Now that was because I was calling expireds and for sale by owners, Now that we're having to resort to calling neighborhoods, we've got to make a lot more than 20 contacts to get 5 qualified seller leads.
Right, right.
But we still, rather than, one of the biggest differences, I guess you could say, between my lead generation time and the way I looked at it, and a lot of other people around me, maybe in the market center or just in my market in general, was that I looked at a day worked as a day where I generated 5 new qualified seller leads and added them to my pipeline. Some people don't; they just look at a day worked as a day that they woke up and went to bed, and showed up at the office. But some people that are more serious about their business, they consider a day worked a day that they went in and lead generated, or they said that, I had to make X amount of phone calls to make it count, or I had to spend X amount of time lead generating. But I was able to get it all the way down to the result. If I didn't add 5 new qualified seller nurtures into my database, then there was a problem there. That wasn't considered a full day work for me, and my goal was to have 250 full days work, so that I had over 1,200 new seller leads into the pipeline. Now that I'm recruiting, it's basically the same thing. I've told without having a minimum of 5 interviews and 1 AVA validation per week, I'm taking my foot off the gas. And so I've just kind of put that result in there, and it's started to work out really, really well.
Right. And, it's funny you mentioned the day about working, and we just covered section 4 of Ignite. And on there in page 4-3, Diana Kokoska says, a day without prospecting is not a work day.
Yeah. She said that in bold. The very first bold I took, she said that. I think that's where that quote came from, was one of the bold classes, and that stuck with me, man. It really, really stuck with me, and I started tracking it.
Right. Absolutely. Now, and you said something real, being purposeful about getting your 5 qualified nurtures, and when you go in with a goal of just having, hey, I'm going to get 5, this is my goal, you will achieve it. If you just kind of go in and you're like, yeah, I'll make some phone calls, well, what's going to come out of those,
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned something about ISAs. Now, I learned, I've met you a few times at some Keller Williams events, and and I actually, the first time you were talking about ISAs, and I took the MAPS group coaching, I think 2 years ago, where I learned all about the ISA, the Inside Sales Associate.
Yeah.
And so you and Sam, and can you tell us a little bit about that and what an ISA is, and how you've just I don't want to use the word exploited, but just blew up that whole area.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I got to the point in my career where I couldn't physically keep generating 5 nurtures a day, continuing being the listing specialist, going out on all the listing appointments, and building an effective team. And since I was committed to generating those 5 nurtures a day, I was unwilling not to do that. The building my team part started to look pretty messy, and it was in 2012 where things just started falling apart. I didn't have the right people in place. I wasn't spending any time developing the people that I did have. It was things were really falling apart, and I didn't physically have the bandwidth to do any more. So I needed to either stop being the listing specialist or stop being the guy that generated all the leads if I was going to spend time building my business. And I wasn't willing to let the results of either go down. And so what I decided to do was I decided to hire somebody to help make phone calls with me. And so I grabbed someone in the market center who had the skills but wasn't really succeeding because he didn't really have the discipline. In this business, you have to cold call for months before you finally get a lead, and then that lead doesn't pan out for maybe 9 months, a year, and you finally sell and close and make some money. But if you are trying to pay rent this month, jumping on the phones and cold calling is not very motivating. I need money. I need a check now. So it's a whole different deal. So I was able to talk to one of the guys here at the market center that needed money now, and I said, look, put your business on hold. I'll pay you. I'll write you checks right now to come in and just work with me, and it'll be a short-term deal while I figure out what I'm doing. Right. And so he came and did that, and it worked out really, really well. And then he went back out to sell real estate, and I ended up hiring a full-time ISA. And all that was an inside sales agent or inside sales associate, and that was just somebody to prospect with me in the mornings, and then when I would leave in the afternoons, they'd stay and keep prospecting. So instead of getting 5 nurtures a day, they could get 10. That was my ideal scenario. What happened was I realized I was calling all the good leads in the morning, so it took a little bit longer. Once you run through all the good leads, it takes a little bit longer to get 5 nurtures out of just cold calling neighborhoods. So nevertheless, I was still able to take my 5 nurtures a day to 10 to 15 nurtures a day between the two of us, and then I was able to jump off the phones. And it worked out so well, and I was able to devote now four fresh hours to running my business every day. It worked out so well that I ended up saying, let's hire a second one. Let's hire a third one. Let's build this thing and keep going, because our return on investment is greater in this arena than it is with direct mail, than it is with internet advertising, anything else. And we're getting high quality seller leads, which is something, it's the best type of lead you can possibly get. So yeah, we continued to do that. Now today we're getting probably somewhere around 40 nurtures a day now. So it's almost 10 times what I used to do on my own, and it's completely taken me out of that realm to where I don't have to worry about personally generating a lead anymore to grow my business. And so that's what that MAPS course that you mentioned is about. It's called Leverage Lead Generation, and it's just about helping you as an agent go from being the guy that generates the leads to being the guy that owns the business and has a department that generates the leads. And it's worked out really well for us, and so everything that I know, we teach in that class.
Yeah, and I actually have 2 folks from my market center here in Covina, California, that are actually going to be taking one. I believe it starts up next month.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for telling me.
And I told them about it because of my experiences, and that kicked off my business as well. So you literally gave me, when you say you give what you do, you literally gave me everything you do, and I just basically plugged it in.
Awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, just like everything else here, we have systems and models, and don't recreate the wheel.
Right. Everything I know is, everything that we do with our ISAs is stuff we've learned from other people in KW and stuff we've learned from Bold and other MAPS group coaching courses. All I did was stop doing it myself and get somebody to do it with me, and then eventually for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. At what level would you recommend or suggest that someone jump in and hire an ISA and take that step?
Jason, that's a really good question. So here's the deal. When MREA would tell you, start out with an administrative assistant, right? The very first thing you should get rid of is admin. And then you should keep yourself in the zone, in the money-making zone, as often as possible, because nobody's going to do it better than you are. You own the business. You care about it the most, right? So keep yourself in that zone as long as you can until you have so much business that you can't physically be there anymore. And so what they say is your second hire should be another assistant. You should be creating so much work that you really need 2 admin to be able to keep up with it. And then from there, you could go hire a showing assistant. That way, because showing property is really another administrative task. So it's almost like hiring a third assistant, and only that person can turn into your buyer's agent.
Yes.
Right around that time is when I would consider hiring an ISA, because now you've got 2 to 3 people that work for you, and it's time that you start to get some of your time back. Now, you've got to have a certain level of business to be able to afford these hires and be able to make these hires make sense. So you can't just, if you're selling 2 houses a month, it might not make sense yet. But I would definitely suggest right around that time, before you have a bunch of agents that are running around, I would say start leveraging out that prospecting piece. Now, if you're not a prospecting-based agent yourself, there's a lot of agents that have super successful businesses based off of referral or based off of open house, other avenues than cold calling. And so in that sense, what we started doing was we started working with people to leverage lead gen is all about coaching you how to take what you do and leverage it to somebody else. If you don't already do it, there's other avenues. There's ways that you can. We've actually started to extend our call center and basically have some of our ISAs calling in other markets and generating seller leads on other agents' behalf. So if you don't have prospecting in your DNA, that's an option you might want to take advantage of.
Right. And are you talking about expansion there, or is that something else?
No, that's something else. That's just a service we're doing to help out some other agents.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But expansion isn't very dissimilar. You know, we've put our own agents into some other markets near here in Austin and San Antonio, just an hour south of us. We were able to put another agent down there, and we're generating about 200 seller nurtures a month down there. So it's plenty of business. I think we took 20 listings in the first 3 months. So wow. Yeah, it's good stuff.
And like Tim was talking about, it's you can take a look at the in the Millionaire Real Estate, the MRA book. He was talking about the model, page 273 at the third level, where you're the agent and you have 2 admins. So Tim was talking about once you hit that level, then start looking at adding the inside sales agent, the ISA, because and of course you're going to have to be generating some money, some money from them to that point to be able to hire those assistants. So
right. And then you've got to monitor your expenses. You got to play red light, green light, like it talks about in MREA. So if you're going to spend, let's say $3,000 a month, then you need to get to a point where you're making $30,000 a month from that spend or close to it, because MREA says that your spend should be around 10%. Your total lead generation spend should be around 10%. Now the good part is some of our leads and some of our clients come without any spend, right? Like repeat and referral. So if you only have a 5x return on some of your spend, it's not the end of the world, because it all needs to average out to be about a 10x return, or that 10% of your budget goes to lead generation. So if you're spending, say, $3,000 a month to generate seller leads, whether it's through an ISA or direct mail or whatever, you want to be looking at, am I bringing in 15 grand a month from that? Am I bringing in 30 grand a month from that? But you got to be playing red light, green light, and monitoring your expenses for sure.
Absolutely. I know when I hired my assistant, it was I had the mindset of, oh my God, am I ever going to be able to afford this? And that went away about, I'm going to say 6 weeks into it. When
that was a good hire.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I pretty much stalked Monica Reynolds at Family Reunion and went to every class she had to learn how to hire the right assistant.
Yeah.
She actually at one point was like, "Hey, I'm gonna call security." I'm like, "No, I'm really here to learn." and I'm kidding, of course. She didn't have to call security.
That's awesome. But you're just like me. I mean, that's what I did too. Everything I know is because I went and stalked people down and said, show me what you do. How do you do this? Tell me the secrets so I can figure it out.
Right. And people always say, "I can't believe you just went up and talked to that person." It's like, why not? Why not? So, yeah, I mean, I stalked Monica Reynolds and I went to all 3 of her breakout classes at Family Reunion, and I actually had resumes in my little satchel, or whatever you want to call it. And about 15 minutes into her class, I threw them all out because they were absolutely wrong. Yeah. But you're talking about red light, green light, and how to hire these people, and it's it took me about 6 weeks before my assistant actually made us money, and she has never cost us a cent ever since. Because she brings in money for us. How many folks right now do you have handling outbound calls?
We've got we've got let's see, 2, 4, 5. We've got 5 full-time on outbound, and then we've got a virtual assistant who works some outbound, but mostly does a lot of inbound and quality assurance.
Okay, and then are the 5 that you have that are full time? Let's just work with those folks. Are they also calling your data bank as well?
They're not. They have in the past.
Okay.
What we've decided is that all in all is that our bread and butter is just they need to generate a certain amount of nurtures. Everybody's got a different goal depending on how long they've been around and what we know they can accomplish. But we just decided at the end of the day, you're talking about past clients, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about past clients.
And all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've dabbled with that in the past, and we've just found the results are so much greater if the agents call them or if I call them than if the ISAs call them. And we know I mean, we've got it down to a science. It's actually like a math formula, really. If they cold call a neighborhood, every hour we're going to get a nurture, and we just keep that going. When we throw them off that game and start having them call the database, it just started to take us away from our focus and the results that we were getting. So it's something that we still work on the agent side of the team, and just kind of keep that separate. Not to say it doesn't work. It's just kind of took us away from our focus when we started doing it.
Gotcha. So, and I agree with you. So you have your ISAs calling and doing their one thing, doing what they do the best, and that's the outbound calls. And then the rest of your people in your business are calling the data bank, the past clients, things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. When agents come into the office in the morning, so many teams struggle with getting their agents to come in and prospect. And
right.
What I found out, I struggled with it too, by the way. And what I found out by, what my team looked like 3 years ago and what my team looks like today is that the guys don't have any problem coming in and picking up the phones and working the phone. They just don't. What they
right.
do, what they struggle with is that they're busy agents, and they've got a lot of urgent things going on. They've got inspections, and they've got appraisals, and they've got option periods and negotiations, and clients that want to go see property, and something just hit the market, and they need to do a good job for their client. They've got emails stacking up and all kinds of things going on. And
right.
so for them to come in the office and block some time to cold call a neighborhood or a buyer, a list of buyer leads that inquired on your website that just basically submitted joke emails and fake phone numbers, and for them to work on that during their most precious, focused time of the day, when they've got all those things going on, is a struggle. Because even if they do find a good lead, that lead might be ready to go 12 months from now. And the agents, they're focused on the now. They're focused on the here and now. So what we were able to do is we were able to bring all of that stuff I was just talking about in-house to the ISAs. We're paying them, and that's their job, and they don't have agent activity to worry about. So they can actually focus on that, building for the future. And then we take all the qualified leads and everything that's ready to go in the next 30 or 60 days, and that's what the agents come in and call. And they have absolutely no problem blocking out an hour and a half or 2 hours or even 3 hours to make those phone calls, because that's about building their business for next month. That's about
right.
building their business for right now. And it's a whole different deal. It's a whole different mindset. They come in the office excited to do that. And we just keep the long-term business building in-house with the ISAs, and it just keeps us moving.
All right, so I've got a question for you, Tim, from one of our viewers, and it's a 4-part question, so stay with me on this. Richard Reyes' team wants to know, do you suggest an ISA come to the office or outsource that? Where do you find an ISA? Do you put them through some sort of boot camp? And if you do you have something that they can use when they're looking for this new ISA hire?
All right, let's tackle it one at a time. I have a very short attention span.
All right, so do you suggest an ISA come into your office, or do you outsource?
So we've done them both. I definitely highly suggest they come into your office. It's like when you hire your EA, are you going to hire them from outsourced, or are you going to? I mean, if you're just going to have them do a little bit of work on the side. When I first hired an assistant, I hired a contract to close person, and it was virtual. But that was because I didn't have the money. I wasn't willing to put in the risk to hire somebody full time, and I made it work. But as soon as I had the money, and as soon as I was able to, I hired somebody in admin full time in house. So if you don't really have the money to do the ISA hire, I would say just keep doing it yourself. Wait until you've got the money and you're willing to pay somebody who can come into the office every day, so you can train them, you can coach them, you can hold them accountable. You can know what they're doing every day. Hiring somebody virtual is a huge challenge, and even if you're hiring somebody that's super talent, by not being there every day, it's a tough job. It's a grueling job, and there's just a lot to be said about being a part of the team, being in the office, building camaraderie. Now, if you're talking about hiring somebody virtually, like with my Outdesk in the Philippines, the challenge you have there is that real estate's done very differently over there, so they don't have a very good idea of how it works. Now, you can certainly train them and work with them on it. We found that after we did, we spent proportionately about the same amount of time training the virtual assistants as we did training the in-house guys. And the in-house guys, dollar for dollar, were getting us higher quality leads and more leads as well. So I would definitely go with in-house.
Great, great. So the next part of the question was, where do you find your ISAs?
Okay, so it's where I find anybody else. We've got about 20 people now. Only 2 people in my business actually had any real estate experience prior to joining me. So I've been kind of a proponent of training from the ground up. The ISAs, I'll just give specific examples. One ISA, I teach Ignite in the Market Center. So one new agent kept coming up and asking questions over and over and over again. She actually did the homework that I gave out. She actually turned it in, emailed it to me. She asked if she could come and shadow. I mean, you could just tell she wanted to learn. She wanted to grow. So I ended up giving her an opportunity, and she was a really, really good ISA for about a year, and then I moved her. Now she's an agent on our team. Another one is a friend of mine from high school. You know, a friend of mine from high school just he was in sales outside of our industry, and I went back and recruited him, brought him in. You know, basically everybody else in the ISA room all came from referral. You know, it's kind of like when you think about recruiting, you need to think about generating listing leads. You know, when you cold call, you go through a lot of phone numbers to get a couple of good leads, right? And that's what we're doing with the ISAs. But if you have a repeat and referral business, you've only got to make a few phone calls to get a really solid referral. And then when that referral, you're probably going to get the listing when you get out there on that appointment, and it's probably going to go really, really smooth. So what we found out was repeat and referral, just as it works well in your real estate business, it works really, really well in recruiting. So most of the people in my organization actually are either from my network or from one of my team members' networks.
Awesome. All right, so the next part of the question is, when you hire a new ISA, do you put them through some type of boot camp?
Yeah, so we've got, and we talk a little bit about it on our leverage lead generation program. We go through the first 100 days. Keller Williams has a model called the first 100 days. So if you take Recruit Select, we actually worked with them to build out the ISA model, and you'll get that in Recruit Select. We also give it away in our leverage lead generation class, and really it's a template for what they need to learn in their first 3 months with you. We actually have a more structured boot camp that we go through here at the office, and so we started putting together video training modules for our guys, and what we're doing now is we're doing some one-on-one mentoring. So when they come on, they've got to go through the video modules that we've done, and then they're working with an ISA who's fully up and ramped one-on-one during their first 30 days, and then they go on from there. So it's a work in progress still, but there's definitely structure behind it, and there's a method to the madness.
Great. So that leverage lead generation, the class that you mentioned, do you have a link or something to that we can put in the replay email when we send that out for those that are interested?
Jason, do you think you'd be able to pull that together from the MAPS website?
Yeah, I have all of that, and you know, actually, Richard, who asked that question, is one of my agents here at the Market Center, and he actually just graduated Bold, and you want to talk about a guy on fire? That's one of them right there, and I'll give him that information personally, but it's a fantastic class, and I'll have that all for you, Scott, so we can put it up on the site.
Great.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Tim. You talked about having them in-house and having your ISAs in-house in the office. Are they all scripted?
Do they use scripts? Is that what you mean?
Do they use scripts, and do they practice them? I mean, obviously they practice them every day, but when they first get started, do you have scripts? Do they practice the scripts?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a script book. We also give that out in leverage lead generation. So we have a script book that has every script from expireds for sale by owners, cold calling neighborhoods, calling investors. We've got every script for every call list that we've ever attempted. And basically the scripts are introductory. We have like the intro lines, which is usually 1 or 2 lines, and then we've got the body of the call, and the body of the call is always going to be questions, right? It's all questions, 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 questions. We teach our guys to talk as little as possible and find out as much information. Every time you ask a question, you're gaining intel. And the more intel you gain, the easier it's going to be to close that person because you know what's important to them. So it's always about asking questions. And then we've got our closes and then our objection handlers. And the objection handlers are different depending on which type of person you're calling. So we have them come in and memorize the script book. But then once they get on the phones, as long as they've memorized the script book, it's not as important to us that they're using the scripts verbatim. As long as they've memorized it and internalized it, they're going to start using the right lines at the right moments. We let them kind of have their own style from there.
Right. And Tim, you hit on something really, really important. It's memorizing it to the point of internalizing it.
Yeah.
And that's something, just like you when you teach Ignite, when I'm here in the Market Center coaching, consulting, and people push back, just like I'm sure they push back on you about learning scripts.
Uh-huh.
They say, oh, it doesn't sound like me. This isn't how I talk. Well, of course not. They're written in proper English with punctuation, and
right.
No one talks that way. The whole point is to truly, truly memorize it and internalize it. So when someone throws you a curveball, asks you a weird question, or it's an intense moment, your subconscious takes over, and boom, you somehow spit out the exact right thing, and you have this like weird experience where you're like, wow, I just said something and I have no idea what I just said, but
yeah, it's like did I really just say that? I didn't even know I had that in me. Yeah, it's really funny when it happens to you for the first time. But the truth of the matter is, the scripts, it's like you said, Jason, it's strategy. It's strategy. It's no. If you already know that the person that you're calling is going to tell you one of 5 things, then why would you not sit back and figure out the best response that you can have prepared for each of those 5 things, so that if and when it does come up, you don't sound like an idiot and you can actually respond and not be stumbling over your words.
Exactly. Now, Tim, like I mentioned before, we have a lot of people on this Google Hangout that aren't necessarily with Keller Williams Realty, and people ask me all the time. What's that?
I'm just kidding. I said that's stupid.
They ask me all the time. They're like, well, why are you telling me? Why do you want to share this information with us? So Tim, why would you give away your basically your special sauce? Why would you even teach a course about it in maps?
Honestly, I'll tell you why I teach the course. It's kind of funny. So everything that I've learned in this business, Jason, has come from this crazy like cooperative mentality that I don't know if it's Keller Williams or if it's the real estate industry or what, but when I first got in, I'm sitting here in my market center, and James Willoughby, the #1 agent in my market center, was sitting here showing me, he's like, here, this is our listing form, when we go out and take a listing, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like trying, he can tell I'm trying to like memorize what it looks like. He's like, you can just have it. And, I couldn't believe he just gave it to me. And then I went back and asked him for something else, and he just started just handing me things, and I thought, this is the coolest thing in the world. I started developing systems that I probably would have taken me 10 years to figure out, in my first year. And so everything I've learned has been from agents that have just handed me things and taught me and just shown me and given it to me. So being super grateful for that, now that people come and ask me for help or advice, I would be like the worst person in the world to just say, no, these are my trade secrets, right? These aren't even my trade secrets. This is just a compilation of what everybody's told me. So I want to be able to share as much as I possibly can. It got to the point, though, where it was becoming a full-time job for me to respond to emails or talk to people over the phone and give advice or kind of talk to them things. So what I did was I called up Maps and I said, hey, if I put together a webinar that kind of shows everything that I do, could you guys help distribute that? Because I don't want to ignore anybody. I want to get as much information out there as possible. I've got to also figure out how to leverage my time. And they said, well, why don't we just create a course, and that way you can, 16 one-hour courses, you can constantly upgrade and tweak the content. And it's funny because every time we run the class, we're tweaking almost every class. We're evolving just like everybody else is, and so we're hitting hurdles and trying to figure out how to break through. And as we do, we're updating our course material, and it's just a way that I can help share that information and give back. And plus, It's culture in Keller Williams. That's why I'm here. I freaking love the culture in Keller Williams. It's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, at family reunion, and I talked to you about this when I bumped into you at Capitol Grill in Orlando.
Yeah.
You said something. You're on a panel in one of the auditoriums, and you said, "Success happens gradually, then suddenly." Um, can you delve into that just a little bit? Real surface stuff. What does that speak to you about?
Yeah.
What is
So
it?
basically, I was like I was telling you earlier, I was eight to noon on the phones, right?
Right.
And for a long time, coming in significantly before 8 o'clock to prepare for that. And from noon to on, I'm in the afternoons. I'm busting it. My first year, 2010, was my first full year in the business, and I was working my tail off, and I was doing all the right things. Not all the right things, but my schedule. I was devoting the right time to lead generation, and I was making it happen. I only sold 18 houses that year,
Mhm.
and 18 houses, it's decent, but I was nowhere near the rookie of the year or anything like that. And my second year, I jumped up, and it was 65 houses. So things started happening, and my third year, things continued to grow. But it was funny. I went from just doing all the right things over and over and over and over and over again, year after year, to all of a sudden one year my business, it just absolutely exploded. And I'm on stage at Mega Camp, and people are asking me about how I do things, and it was like almost in a matter of like 30 days, all of a sudden it was like, Tim's got this really big business that's actually rocking and rolling and doing some big things. And I didn't do anything differently from year 3 to year 4. It just all of a sudden the results kept up with me, and then kind of passed it up. And overnight it seemed like it was a different world.
Right. So every day you're coming in, you're doing the activity, and you were tied to the activity, not so much the outcome. And then all of a sudden, it just started
Yeah.
this
It,
effect and this
it,
domino.
it's like the compound effect. It's like if you get 5 nurtures a day, that doesn't seem like a lot. In fact, it seems like a waste of time if those nurtures are 6 months or 9 months out. It really does seem like a waste of time when you're busy. But
Right.
if you get 5 a day, and then you do it for a month, and that's 100, and then you do it for 12 months, and that's 1,200, and then you do it for 3 years, right? Now you're talking about 3,600 leads, highly qualified seller leads that have told you when to follow up with them and that they're interested in talking with you. 3,600 of them. I
Right.
mean, that you'd be, if you don't sell a couple hundred houses, there's something wrong with you at that point. I mean,
Absolutely.
it would have been hard for me not to sell 260 houses last year with the amount of qualified seller leads I have in my database. So
Right.
yeah, it's just one of those things that day in and day out you put in the work. It's a little bit at a time, but eventually your database is so big that you can't not have a big business.
Right. And I talk to people all the time about their database and how they touch the people in the database. And their numbers in the Millionaire Real Estate book, the MREA book, and I might be misquoting it, but I believe it's, if you have 2,400 people in your database, you touch them just once a month, you'll get 50 sales out of that. And these are MEPs. And that's just touching them once a month.
Yeah.
And there are people that don't even touch their data. They're scared to death of calling their past clients.
Yeah.
Which I never understood. Now, again, we got to keep in mind that Tim's got the systems, he's got the models that are in place, and these are all things that he's learned, like he said, from other people here at Keller Williams, and talking to people and just going up to them saying, hey, what are you doing to be successful? So these are all things that he's kind of put together to build his business. Now, I know you're always evolving, always learning, always changing. Have you ever had regrets about starting your ISA program?
You mean leverage lead generation, the coaching program, or my ISA department?
No, just having the ISAs in the office. Have you ever said, you know what, to heck with this, I'm shutting it down? Have you ever had regrets about it?
Absolutely not. No, it's what the rest of my business thrives on. We wouldn't have any repeat and referral business if we didn't have that. We wouldn't have any inbound business if we didn't have that. All the other business that's created originally has come from what we've done in the ISA room. So there absolutely not, no regrets. If I had to start over today in a different city, I would literally, the first thing I would do is get an ISA, and I would get going.
Right. And then 2015. I know it's March 19th. What are your goals this year? Are you on plan to hit them? What do they look like? Can you
Yeah,
share that?
we're going to close about 320,000 in GCI just this month. So things are really starting to catch up. We're going to probably close about 320,000 next month. So it's one of those things where all the work that we put in last year, we really felt like didn't quite pay off last year. I mean, some of it did, but it's starting to all come into fruition for this year. And so our goal this year is to sell 400 houses and to break 3 million in GCI, and that all should take place. We also have an expansion goal to sell 100 houses in our new expansion market in San Antonio, and so we're a little bit behind goal on that, but we're going to get very, very close.
Wow, those are definitely impressive numbers. But again, the success happened gradually and then suddenly. So this is something you've been building and tweaking and changing as you grow, as you go.
Yeah, even with expansion, this has been something that I've been working on, at least in my head and on paper, for two and a half years. So
Right.
just the fact that it's just finally now getting off the ground, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that these things take time. They don't happen overnight.
Absolutely. And Tim, I know you're wicked busy and you got to get going. Last piece of advice for the folks that are watching and they're going to watch on the replay. Last piece of advice for newbies, for the middle, or even the experienced mega agents.
First of all, you've got to be, one of my favorite bold laws is clarity is power.
Yeah.
And that relates to me in so many ways, but the way that I want to talk about right now is just that you've got to have clarity in your vision, because if you don't know where you're going, I heard I watched an interview of a kid in Keller Williams. I can't remember who it was, but they interviewed Gary Keller, and they asked him something about success. I can't remember what the question was, but he just made a comment. He said, success is about achieving something you set out to do. And a lot of us just get in here and we say we want to be successful, right? But we don't even really know what that means. So it's really important that you get crystal clear about what you want your life to look like and your business to look like. And the reason I say that is because if you're going to actually put in the work that it takes day in and day out, consistency is the secret sauce. Consistency is the secret sauce. So if you're going to put in the work, there's going to be days, there's going to be weeks, there's even going to be months where you feel like just throwing in the towel because this is a complete waste of my time, or I've got, this is way too stressful, or it's not working. There's so many things that will come in your head in the moment. So if you're not clear about your vision and obsessed with it, I mean, it's got to be on your mind constantly. There's gonna be a time where you just decide to throw in the towel or to lose the consistency. So the thing that helped me get through years of 4 hours a day cold calling was that when I'm on the phones cold calling, I was picturing myself in my business that was 5 or 10 years down the line. And I'm still there today. I'm sitting here recruiting. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I'm doing it because I know what my business looks like 5 years from now, and I can't wait to get there. And so that's what I'm constantly visualizing. So just be clear about your vision, become obsessed with it, and just know that consistency is the secret sauce.
Awesome. And on a personal note for me, will I see you down in Huntington Beach, California at Masterminds?
I won't be there. I've got a 3-month-old daughter, so I'm trying to do as little travel as possible while we raise her and get her on her feet.
I hear you.
But I'll be at the next event, whatever it is, Mega Camp or whatever the next event is.
Yeah, I think the next major one's probably Mega Camp after that. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, I'll be excited to see you, Jason.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, Tim, it's as always when I get the opportunity to talk with you and to hear you and learn from you, it's always a pleasure, my friend. And I appreciate you spending the time with Scott and I and everybody that's watching, and just super excited and to hear your what you're doing in your business and what you're doing for your goals and everything. It's awesome, and it's electrifying, and it pumps me up, and and I really appreciate it. I appreciate you spending the time with us today.
It's my pleasure, Jason. I appreciate you asking me. And Scott, thanks for putting this thing together, man. Appreciate both of y'all's time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim, and thanks to everybody who watched. It was a lot of great information today. We'll get the replay email out shortly, and just so everybody knows, our next Millionaire Real Estate Agent Hangout will be on April 3rd. That's a Friday, and it'll be at the normal time.
Yeah, excellent.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.